Welcome back everybody, and the first thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the new subscribers and the kind thumbs up. It's only a few, but I didn't think there would be that many. I don't get that many thumbs down, so we must be going along the right lines. In this series of videos we're going to build a copy of the PureAudioProject Trio using the TangBand. This is the TangBand. I'm working around the camera again. W8 1808 8 ohm full range drive unit, well regarded, for the money, about £250 at the moment. So we use one of those as a full range, and we use, on this occasion I'm using two Eminence Beta 15s, 15As, and we'll go through a bit of a chassis arrangement and the way I did it. So we're using two of these, one of those, and this is the crossover that we're going to use. You can use a different type of crossover, or indeed you can run them active if you want. I run these in a finished product, if you like, active. Very, very good results. And the overall impression is the pure scale you get off these two 15 inches and this. I think it crosses, this crossover actually crosses over at about 400 hertz. Actively I crossed it at 500, no detriment whatsoever, and in fact I think it sounded a little bit better, a bit more tonal quality to it. But first of all we'll go into the chassis and how I approached it. This is my interpretation of a copy of the PAP. I heard the PureAudioProject Open Baffle some years ago, many years ago now, and I was very impressed at just the physical scale and the delicacy of its interpretation of the music. So I'll be back in a second and we'll just run through the chassis. So the chassis, again I'll repeat, this is my interpretation. You don't have to do this, you can just do it any way you like, but you need a chassis to mount the drive units on, and predominantly a lot of people use a bit of 18mm ply or MDF, but there's too much energy, in my opinion, there's too much energy generated just for a bit of 18 or 25mm ply. So what I did, I had a company, they actually cut these, this is 6mm MDF. I had a load of these cut, absolutely accurate, and what I did, I in effect made a laminate construction. So I glued one on top of the other, using these holes as a guide, 5mm holes as a guide. They just happen to be, they will be a guide for the mountings, and you'll see that in a minute. So I ended up with 5. This is just 3, this is what's left over. And obviously this will form part of the baffle board for the driver to sit in. They were glued, clamped, left for 48 hours. And you end up with something that looks, this is going to be repurposed, but you end up with a baffle board. And as you can see, it's 5 thick. There are 5 pieces of MDF, and then you have to mount that on 2 legs, if you like, or chassis legs. So what I did, because I didn't like the idea of having the fronts, you'll see them all, they've all got bolts through the front, so I didn't want that. So what I did, I drilled a 10mm hole. These are, I think they're called nutserts, and you glue them in from the front. All this will become apparent in a second. Again, leave it for a while. And the legs are made up of, in effect, it's a bit of 2x2. In actual fact, this is a bit of what they call CLS in the UK. It's a bit of stud work gear, and this forms the leg. And what we do, turn it over. This side is the front, this side is the back, and the leg bolts to the back via some of these bolts with a big penny washer. So the penny washer fits through the baffle plate and screws into the nut start. Just like that. Do these up. There you go. So you end up with a nice solid chassis leg, nice solid baffle board. You would then put your other leg on, obviously. I think I've got one over here. Got another one here. Something like that. These have been repurposed into all sorts of things, experiments that I've done with this over a period. I ended up building a Nelson Pass, I think they call it a slob, where you have this configuration and you have another drive unit at an angle at 90 degrees. I didn't particularly like it personally, so you end up with two legs. Obviously they're going to be a lot longer than this. In actual fact, they're 1150 long, the legs, and these boards are 425 by 600 wide, 500 wide, sorry, and the drive unit fits in there, and that forms part of your chassis. Now obviously you have one at the top, one at the bottom, and you have one through the middle as well for your full range driver. So we've bolted that on there and it's completely flush, and now I can put a nice finishing touch to that. Bear with me. So you fix your 15-inch drive. I'm going to put a couple of screws in here just for demonstration purposes only. Let's fix that in there. Obviously you go through the centre it all up. There we go, so that's on there. So that's screwed all together. Spin him over. So then what I did, again I went back to my supplier of the MDF, and he cut me some front furniture plates. Drop me my warts and all. He cut me some nice black acrylic. It's 3mm thick black acrylic, double-sided sticky tape, and you can just stick that on the front. I mean, you could use anything and paint it really, but this left a better finish, more professional. Top and bottom, you may have seen photographs of this all over this. These are all over the internet. This PAP design that I did. and then you just infill this with a bit of foam. There's a bit of Velcro, 25mm Velcro male on the inside there, sticky back, so you stick that on there, and then you cut a piece of 25mm acoustically transparent foam, and you use this plastic front touch you use as a template to cut the hole, and the whole thing, you've got to spend a bit of time with a pair of tweezers lining it all up, but you end up with something that resembles a nice front end. You've got to do this 4 times obviously for the base 15-inch base units, but you end up with something that's quite presentable as opposed to having bolts all over the place showing. So that's this first initial introduction to the PAP, or the clone PAP, and my interpretation of that speaker. The whole thing is quite versatile in as much as if you wanted the 2 bass units top and bottom, one here and one here, and you wanted the full range at the top, you just drill some more holes in your legs and move them about. If you so wish, there's some thought that it sounds better if you move the full range from the midpoint up to the top. Bearing in mind these things are over 1 meter high, 1150 high, so that for me it didn't work, but I couldn't get far enough away. But I think if you're far enough away, they work well like that. So that's a a quick how did I do it. You've got to have a few skills, few tools, but it's easily achievable. And you end up which looks something, I don't know if I can get it all in the workshop, something like that. In the back, obviously there's no 15 inches in there, and these uprights have yet to be painted black, but you can get the idea, I think. The actual, down the bottom here, there's just an L bracket of some description. You can use shelving brackets, or you can make cantilevers, you can do anything you like really, but they seem to be better just canted back at a few degrees to make them stable. So we're going to push on. This is just an introduction to the PAP clone and the way I've done it. There's lots of other ways of doing it. You can use a Baffle board, 25mm. I've built one for a relation of mine, and I just use 25mm ply, birch ply. That works quite well. It's quite rugged, that is. I wouldn't go down, I would advise personally, I wouldn't go down the MDF route, because when I first built this, these nutserts were flush with the MDF, but over time it crushes, and as you can see, you end up with a divot, and you have to keep doing the bolts up on the back because they don't nip up correctly. But just a thought. So that's an introduction. We'll carry on. I'll build these up over the next few days whenever. I'm waiting on crossover components. As I say, I run them active. I did run them passive for a little while with just I think it was just 3 components. There was an inductor, a capacitor and 1 resistor, 10 ohm 10 watt resistor, I think. I wasn't overly satisfied with that, but anyway, the new crossover apparently is much better. All this is available on the internet if you do some searching. But thanks for now. There will be a second one coming up, and probably a third as a final. This is what they look like, this is what they sound like. So again, thank you to all the new subscribers. Thanks for all the thumbs up. If you want to give me a thumbs up, please do, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.